Welcome to the AFGHANEYE YouTube channel. If this is your first visit, make sure to subscribe and press the notification bell so that you won't miss any of our new videos.
No, ahmed-waleed Karkar. You're muted, Sangar. ahmed-waleed Karkar. Sangar, apparently you're muted.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
Guys, just before we sort of get right into it, do you guys want to first of all like the video? Because once again, the number of people watching the video is much higher than the people liking the video, which is obviously not good news. Second of all, the reason it zoomed into my face is because my internet connection has, I'm sure you guys have realized, a bit of turbulence. And thirdly, would you guys please share the video on your social medias so that other people can join us? Some, the usual suspects, and others, of course, newer listeners or viewers. And yeah, we'll just wait. First of all, we apologize deeply for the delay in starting the live stream. We did sort of announce it for 10 p.m., but just getting the material all collated together, ready to share with you guys to offer sort of our perspectives took slightly longer than we would have intended. So that's our mistake, and we apologize for that. But in any case, if you guys could like the video once again, it's still nowhere near enough compared to the number of people watching at the moment. And also please share it on your social medias so that other people can find us the way that you guys found us as well. Sangar څنګه څه خبرې دي؟
السلام علیکم. والا که رښتیا درته وایم ډیر مصروف یم بیخي سوچ مې بیخي ګډ وډ دی خو په هر حال السلام علیکم guys. I am here. I'm sorry for all the mess. It's because I am a little bit stressed. There is so much going on and I'm trying to do what I can to get the right story, the right information and details. And because of that, I tend to mess up the technical aspect of the live stream and everything. But
It's
bear with
okay,
us,
we
please.
forgive you. Abs is asking, why isn't the stream showing on AFGHANEYE YouTube on TV? I think you should probably consult your TV, Abs. I think if it's showing on YouTube, it's showing on YouTube.
Yeah, I can check it on my TV, but there's no problem. Okay, guys.
It's okay now. Okay, he's saying it's okay now.
Okay, so assalamu alaikum again, guys. Forgive me for the audio problems in the beginning. We are going to talk about a very serious matter. We have seen the images of the drama at Kabul airport. We have seen the suffering. We have seen many people die. There are people who are thirsty. They haven't had any food. They don't have shelter. Extremely disturbing images. But the biggest question that needs to be answered is, who is responsible for this? Who caused this drama at Kabul airport? Now, we are not going to just blame someone. We will just give you all the facts. We will give you all the facts as we have gathered them, and things that you can see for yourself. And at the end of the show, you can make up your mind, and you can, in the chat, you can tell us what do you think, who's responsible. So that's what the agenda is for today's show. As my friend Ahmed-waleed Kakar said, please share the link with everyone, and please like the video. We take a few more moments, and then we will start, inshallah. Okay?
Sure. So Aftab Ahmad is saying, Walid, quick update on Panjshir. So we commented on the report of the Telegraph yesterday that was reporting that Ahmed Massoud wanted to surrender Panjshir, and it was something that was sort of in the process of happening. That surrender, to the extent that I'm aware, has not happened. But Zabiullah Mujahid in today's press conference, amongst other things, did say that they're trying to resolve the Panjshir thing still peacefully. Nivan Shah is saying, why are Taliban leaders living in governors' houses whilst people are dying of hunger? This isn't Islam. Well, I would say that, those governors' houses were kind of already there. They were sort of there for that purpose. But in any case, I would suggest that you contact the Taliban leaders and ask them. Okay, and Vivo is saying, how many Americans do you think are in Afghanistan? Are the numbers like 10,000 real in your opinion? I honestly have not seen enough information to warrant me giving my opinion or analysis on that. I'm sorry about that, but I'd just sort of rather on the side of caution. But yeah.
Okay, guys.
Is the Gaiman fan is saying, is the Taliban constrained regarding Panjshir? Because if they were to take it by force, resulting in casualties, it would be a PR disaster for them, in my opinion, and in the opinions that we expressed in our last night's live stream. That is indeed the case. Yes.
All right. So we'll just wait for a few dozen more viewers to join us, and then we will start. So guys, if you want us to start, make sure that you share the link with as many people as possible.
Yeah, exactly. Cinema Aesthetics is asking, some pro-resistance accounts are calling Ahmad Massoud Amir. Does it say anything? I don't think they're actually calling him Amir. I think they're calling him Amir. And that was a label that his father was given. It sort of means commander. YouTube channel IV is saying, rumors are saying that ISIS is going to Kabul, Ahmad. Is it true? Potentially, but I'm not in a position to comment on the veracity of that.
Okay, Ahmed, you decide when we start.
يا دقيقة 2 دقيقة مور وركة. Nori, I mix my English and Pashto there. But guys, just in case anyone here is new and you're wondering sort of why we're doing this and who we are, we're freelancers. We work our day jobs, and we're here at night, as we have been for about the last week and a half, to cover and sort of give an analysis on breaking news from Afghanistan. And the reason that we have day jobs and we do this sort of as our freelancing, as a sort of our passion and our greater calling, is because we feel that we need to provide a counter narrative. So if you want us potentially to do this full time, which would mean more content for you, which would mean a stronger counter narrative, a more
traveling through Afghanistan and reporting from Afghanistan,
which would mean traveling through Afghanistan, which would mean allowing us to get to a level where we could make this our full-time job. If that's something that you agree with us that needs to happen, you don't need to start off by doing anything major. You could just start off with subscribing to our YouTube channel. Above that, you could share our content on social media. And above that, you could donate to us on PayPal or via Super Chat or by our Patreon page. I don't know if you guys have realized today, but my voice is relatively more quiet. My demeanor is sort of more relaxed, and that's because I'm absolutely shattered. But there is news that has come out of Afghanistan, and irrespective of whether I or Sangar are shattered, we will be here to offer our insight and provide the counter narrative that we aim to do. Um, so yes, Sangar. Aftab Ahmed is asking, why are they making this chaos in the airport? What is the benefit? Well, stay tuned, stay with us for the rest of our live stream, because we're dedicating this live stream towards covering the airport, the events preceding the chaos at the airport, and the coverage of it. So, Sangar, شرويكو.
Samada. Okay, guys. So let's just start off with the following. Uh, on Sunday, a week ago, the regime in Kabul collapsed. As the regime was collapsing, the Americans sent 5,000 troops to Kabul airport to help evacuate the staff of American embassy in Kabul. Now, the American embassy in Kabul is not just an embassy like in any other country. You know, if you live in the capital of any country, if you have an embassy there from any country, it's just a huge building. They have a lot of employees there, but nothing fancy, nothing special. Kabul embassy, American embassy in Kabul has thousands of employees. There are intelligence workers, researchers, communication experts, people who provide all sorts of training and courses for people in Afghanistan. A lot of military officers are there. They have. It's a huge facility, it's a small city inside Kabul. That's Kabul airport, and Kabul embassy in Kabul, a U.S. embassy in Kabul. So, in order to evacuate that building, they had to send back another 5,000 troops with loads of cargo in military cargo planes to take everything out. This happened on the same day when Kabul was surrounded by the Taliban and the regime collapsed. People just gave up. They boarded military airplanes. They flew to Dubai and they tried to go to Central Asian republics. Total
And New Delhi.
New Delhi, and total disaster, total fiasco. Okay, so we all seen that. We've covered this in the all in
We were
our
actually
previous
live on YouTube as it happened.
yeah, that was one of the craziest days since we started AFGHANEYE.
Yeah.
Like we did 2 live streams on that day. That
Yeah,
was
yeah.
crazy.
We literally sat here for 6 hours analyzing news as it came out. I think I remember you telling me President Ashraf Ghani has fled, and I was like, "Yo, damn, that means he's no longer the president."
Okay, so we've covered that. You all can go back and watch our previous live streams and see that. Okay, now what happened prior to this drama? Because as the regime collapsed, on the same day, thousands of people run towards Kabul airport trying to leave the country. Now, how did that happen, and why did all these people run to Kabul airport, and what caused these masses of people trying to run? Was it simply because they were all scared of Taliban? That's the dominant narrative, okay? But here we are for the counter narrative at AFGHANEYE. So we will give you the counter narrative based on facts. First of all, I want to share with you a news story, which is from the 2nd of August. Let's go to the other screen.
There's a question that you may just want to address quickly, Sangar.
Yes.
AYK is saying, Sangar, why do you hate Panjshir? I've been seeing you spreading hate against Panjshir. Why, bro? Are you pro-Taliban?
I've never been to Panjshir, okay? I've been to Salang. I have spent a lot of time in my life with many Panjshiris, and I would say I dislike the politics of Jamiat Islami, and if being opposed to the policies of Jamiat Islami, their leaders, if that means basically, if you think being opposed to Jamiat Islami's policies and politics, and if you think disagreeing with them or criticizing them means you're against Panjshir, then yeah, I cannot defend myself. I cannot say anything. But I do think that if people are anti-Taliban, that doesn't mean they're anti-Pashtun or that they're anti-Southern people. I would never say
That would
that.
make me very angry.
Yes.
But, I mean, I think I should.
Sorry, let me finish. That's the essence of it. Okay. Political entities, political parties, political leaders, they try to unify themselves with a particular demographic, with a particular region. And when you criticize that person, people who support that person, they assume that you are also against those people. This is the evil nature of politics. And here at Afghan Eye, if you listen to our podcast, if you read our articles, that's exactly what we are trying to oppose. We want to go beyond these brackets and stuff. I can be opposed to Ashraf Ghani and dislike him and criticize him every day and ridicule him on Twitter. Nobody's going to say, are you against Ahmed-waleed tribe? Because I am from Ahmed-waleed tribe. I am related to Ghani by tribe. At least 50 people from my village worked in the presidential palace. Nobody's saying, Sangar, you're against Pashtuns, you're against the Ahmed-waleed tribe because you're against Ashraf Ghani. So if being opposed to Amrullah Saleh or being opposed to Ahmad Massoud, does that mean I'm against Panjshir or against Tajiks? No. I'm also half Tajik as well. I speak Dari at home. That's my native language. I have two native languages, Pashto and Dari. So I understand your question, but I respect that you asked this in the chat boldly, and I appreciate that people ask such questions in the chat, and I encourage you all to do that. But this is my honest answer. I can't say anything more than that.
Historical lectures and literature is also saying, I also got the same feeling yesterday that you guys hate Panjshir and hate Tajiks. Sorry for saying that. I like your channel. Well, once again, I regret that you feel that way. Sorry that you feel that way, rather. But in all honesty, when I've criticized President or a former President Ashraf Ghani, no one once turned around and told me that it means that I hate people from Surkhab and Logar. And when I've criticized Nur Muhammad Tarake, no one ever came to me and told me that it's because I hate people from Ghazni or people from the Tarake tribe, and so on and so forth with people like Abdul Rab Rasul Sayaf, and so on and so forth. And the problem that we're faced with here is that, like Sangar said, these people, they've cultivated this sort of politics where they've synonymized themselves with an ethnicity. But like Sangar said as well, we don't really believe in those sort of taboos that have been imposed from the top down. So we don't believe that just because someone is from a different valley or a province, or they claim to represent an ethnicity, that it makes them immune from being criticized. I wrote an article with Sangar examining tribal warfare in Kandahar, where we really strongly criticize people like Gul Agha Shirzai, who's a Barakzai, General Raziq, and Hamid Karzai. Right now, just because those people think or portray themselves as the representatives of those tribes, does it mean that we're just going to abide by these taboos that have been sort of forced down our throats? Absolutely not, right? And so if a Barakzai comes to me and accuses me of despising the Barakzai tribe, on the basis of that, I'm not even going to apologize to them about my writings. I'm just going to say, I'm sorry that you feel that way. So, and the same thing applies to Ahmad Massoud as well. A lot of the times we've come to this sort of scenario where someone's actions are not the problem, but my ethnicity criticizing the actions of that person from another ethnicity becomes the problem, and that is the problem.
And
But in
and
any
just
case,
just uh, just one more thing. Uh, you see, I identify first and foremost as an Afghan. Okay, that's my heritage and identity. But within my Afghan identity, the most central element is Islam. I am a Muslim, and I see all Muslims as my brothers and sisters. And I'm not just here being preachy. That's exactly how I feel. I have many friends who are not Afghans, and they're very close friends because we share a bond based on faith. And the same thing applies with people who are not Pashtun, who are not related to me, who are not from my tribe, but they're from Afghanistan. Uh, even some people like Waleed. But anyway, but what I'm trying to say is, guys, that's not what we stand for. But anyway, we need to move on. Okay.
there's just one question here, and I'm going to answer this in characteristic fashion. Earth Human is saying Taliban are hypocrites. How can you shake hands with China, a nation that abuses Muslims, that cry out that America is abusing Muslims? It's a very good question. You should ask the Taliban that. And the reason I'm being tongue-in-cheek for the seventh time is because I feel that whilst Sangat and I, we do have our access, we do have our sources, we've studied the Taliban as a movement going back from the 90s quite a bit. We've made predictions. I don't know why we're being approached with criticisms of the Taliban. If you have criticisms of the Taliban, you should raise it with them. As observers, as analysts, as experts, journalists, whatever you want to call us, we have connections, we have sources, and that is why we provide the level of insight on the platform that we
And
do. But
furthermore,
if
I
you have
actually agree
criticism,
with that criticism. I
I
actually
agree
agree
with
with
it
that
as well.
criticism.
I
They,
agree with that.
they have
I
beards
agree
and
with it.
turbans. They have beards and turbans, and they shake hands with people who banned people from growing a beard. They banned women from wearing hijab. So that's a very legitimate criticism. I actually
It
agree with
is.
that.
It is, but I'm sort of getting the sense that we're being approached with criticisms of the Taliban, with people expecting us to say, no, the Taliban are all awliya. And that's not what we're gonna do, guys. Like, if there's an actual point being raised here, fine. But if it's sort of in the accusatory tone, fine. But you're approaching the wrong person with
Yeah.
it. But in any case, we got
Ahnaf
sidetracked
Habib,
slightly.
Ahnaf
Okay,
Habib
cool.
has a super chat of 20 Canadian dollars. The issue is not whether one is anti-Talib or anti-Panjshir. The issue is lasting peace. The war has gone on 40 years plus. It is time to give peace a chance, regardless of whether you think the government is 100% moral or not. Absolutely agree 100%, and thank you very much for the super chat. Guys, we need to move on. We don't have that much time. We need to discuss Kabul airport. Okay, so we start off with a news story from August the 2nd. This is from NBC. And they said that Biden administration to open doors to more Afghans to relocate to US over Taliban danger. This news was published on August the 2nd. Now, this news is a major story that is translated on all local news in Afghanistan. So everyone who has access to internet in Afghanistan, everyone who has access to radio and television, they will hear about this story on local news in Afghanistan. And word of mouth travels really fast. We have another report, article. This is from the official website of the Canadian government. They are saying on 13th of August, so 2 days prior to the collapse of regime, that Canada is expanding resettlement program to bring more Afghans to safety. They discuss all the details of who is eligible and whatnot. And to be honest, I will just summarize this as follows. They have specific criteria for people that they will accept as refugees, and they will allow them to enter Canada. But this news also is translated and reported by local news in Afghanistan. I will just give you an example. The USAID Finance Tolo News reported that the United States is going to accept 8,000 more Afghans who are under threat. This is the news story, okay? Published shortly after those English language news from United States and Canada. This is the BBC Farsi page. They have reported that story from Canada about the 20,000 people that are eligible to be accepted as refugees. Now, here's the thing. If you want to allow people to escape Afghanistan and you put conditions, those conditions are you have to have a passport. You have to have evidence that you are eligible, whether you have worked for the Canadians or you belong to a vulnerable group of Afghans. You have to be able to prove that. I, as a professional interpreter for Afghan refugees who has done this for 11 years, I'm telling you, I've seen these cases. I've seen many refugee cases being rejected. People who have actually worked for Western governments in Afghanistan because they didn't have the right documents. Now, if you're going to make an announcement like this, like the Americans and the Canadians, it means that the announcement also entails that there are conditions. You have to have documents. You have to be able to prove it. And those documents need to be processed. Those documents need to be processed by an embassy. Okay? You need an embassy where people can approach and say, look, I am eligible. This is my passport. This is where I worked. This is my name. This is my case, etc., etc. So you need embassies. Now, what happened shortly after that? Here we go. U.S. Embassy in Afghanistan, security alert. They are saying on the 7th of August, so on the 2nd of August, they said that they want to allow more people to come to the United States. On the 7th of August, they said all U.S. citizens escape Afghanistan. Run, escape. Okay, this is the announcement. Then what happened? U.S. Embassy announced that they're closing down and they're taking all their diplomats away because the regime has collapsed. This is the next story, okay? So first they say, we want more people to come, to go with us to America. Then they say, those who have a green card or a US passport, please leave the country now, run. And then shortly after that, this is on August the 14th, they say, we're closing down the embassy. We're running away. We're packing up. This is also the same time when they announced that 5,000 more US troops will go to Kabul airport so that they can facilitate the evacuation of US Embassy. At the beginning of the show, I explained that the US Embassy is not a regular embassy. They have thousands of employees there. And
so it's a military compound in and of itself.
Exactly. And it's not just the Canadians and the Americans. For example, the Dutch embassy, where I live, the Netherlands, they have also announced on 13th of August that they're closing their embassy down and they're taking their staff with them. These news were all circulating on Afghan media. They were circulating around on social media and word of mouth. This created a panic among many people who thought, okay, I am eligible, I have the documents, I can escape, but these guys are running away and they're closing their embassies. So what is the logical step for such people? What are they going to do? They're going to run to the airport. They're going to run to the airport because the airport is the only place where foreign troops were present, where airplanes were present, and everything else was shut down. Now, what they have done is they have, here you see Canadian Embassy was also announcing that they were shutting down. This was on the 24th 5th of May. This was on the 25th of May, long before all this drama. They wanted to have 20,000 more Afghan refugees to apply for visa and escape the country, but their embassy was closed. Here is a story of an American who was, I think he might have escaped by now. He was in Afghanistan. And this man, he is going to tell his story. And some of you might have seen this, but I'm just going to play the video and just listen what he has to say.
We are learning there are still Americans stuck and struggling to get out of Afghanistan. Joining us now is David Fox, who runs a marketing firm in Kabul. He and his Afghan wife and son have been desperately trying to get out of that nation, but they are still there tonight. David, in a series of Facebook posts, you detailed your harrowing experience trying to leave to get to the airport, and then at the airport. Please tell us what happened.
So I have a friend in the U.S. State Department who was in touch with people who were inside the Kabul airport. And after many days of, waiting and trying to decide what to do, without any notice from the U.S. government about evacuation flights, we decided, on the advice of my State Department friend, to make a run for the airport. He told us that if we were able to get to the gate, he would have a friend who could identify us and actually, bring us, into the airport itself. So I kind of organized a little convoy with an African-American friend of mine who also had a very, a young son who was the same age as my little boy. And we went together in a group of 9 people to the north gate of the Kabul airport. And when we got there, there was a crowd of several hundred, potentially even, over 1,000 individuals. I mean, Afghans who were desperate to get into the airport. I'm a bigger person, but I was, carrying a, 3-year-old boy, and we were just, pushing our way into the crowd. I'm also taller, so I was, trying to, make eye contact with the U.S. Marines who were at the gate. At one point I was about 10 feet away, which, felt like, with the number of people that were there, felt like a football stadium's length. But I was able to make contact with one of the Marines, and he was yelling, Americans here. And he just, I made eye contact with him, and he just says, get out, get back now. And the Marines are just, firing, their weapons, firing warning shots in the air, throwing flashbangs. And every time they would do a series of, volleys of warning shots, the whole crowd would surge back. And I was holding this little boy and just, trying to keep my balance, trying not to fall down. And after 30 minutes of this, me with my son and my
just to give you a little additional information, here you see an American who was at Kabul airport, and he's saying that the Americans were firing the warning shots, yeah? So when I told you guys that a relative of mine was killed by a stray bullet, and that bullet came from the Americans, here you have an American who is saying that those shots were fired by the Americans. So that you know that I wasn't making stuff up, and it wasn't just, a false accusation.
My African-American friend, Tamana, with her son, we realized that we just couldn't, continue this. If we, stayed there longer, there was the chance that we would, pass out from exhaustion.
Were you concerned at any point that the Taliban were going to fire on you?
There are 3 gates that the Marines control on the north side of the airport. And the Marines don't have any working relationship with the Taliban. So there's no one who can control the crowd on the outside. The only way that the Marines can get the crowd to back up is by firing warning shots and throwing flashbangs into the crowd. Now, the Taliban are working with the British on what's known as the Camp Sullivan Gate, which is on the eastern side of the Kabul airport, the southeastern corner of the Kabul airport. And I had my friend who was in the U.S. State Department who was guiding me. We were exchanging exact locations using using WhatsApp. He knew exactly where I was. He was giving me exact locations about where I should go. And when the North Gate option did not work out for us because we aborted, we just, after we aborted that attempt, my friend Tamana's contact, who was in the U.S. Department of Defense, said, okay, go to the Barron Hotel, which is by the Camp Sullivan Gate. The Taliban have, a couple of layers of security. So they have an outer perimeter and then an inner perimeter, and then the place where, these people can actually communicate with a British soldier. So on the outer perimeter, the Taliban are checking documents. We'd get to the gate and we'd show the Taliban our U.S. passports, and they would just say, oh, well, please, by all means, come in. And then we would get in the outer gate. And then in the intermediate gate, that's when, there's three kinds of Taliban. There was Taliban management, so they're unarmed. There was Taliban, fighters who actually had weapons, and, they would fire warning shots, and hit people with butt stocks, poke people with the barrel of the weapons. And there was, Taliban enforcers. So the Taliban enforcers had these, big rubber bands. I think they're called motor fan belts. And, I actually got whacked with, with one of these fan belts for not moving fast enough.
The U.S. military have said they can't send troops out to get folks because they don't have the resources to engage like that. So this harrowing description here, how are you going to get out of that country?
So, for me as a father, I always have to I have to weigh the risks of these different options. So to me, the airport is very dangerous. The Marines do not have control of the northern gates. And for whatever reason, the British, are not allowing Americans with, American passport holders to just come in. The issue of the mob at the airport is because there's a belief in that's spreading, in the Afghan society, that if you can get into that airport by hook or by crook or just throwing elbows and pushing, then you will get on a free flight to America. And when you get to America, you will start processing your asylum case, and then you will become a U.S. citizen. So they think it's like a once in a lifetime opportunity to get to the United States, which for most Afghans is just like an implausible dream. So we are going to wait until these evacuation flights stop, and then commercial flights resume. And, I just want to, if you allow me, I want to add one kind of additional piece of information about what the U.S. State Department is doing to try to, help, eligible individuals get to the airport.
Go ahead, David.
So this morning at around 9 a.m., I received an email from the U.S. Embassy Consular Services Department.
Now he's going to talk about how he, as a U.S. citizen, received a document per email. This is very important. Please close attention. Pay attention.
And they said, we have created a document to help, American citizens and eligible SIV recipients and applicants get to the airport. And it is this document. I printed it just for you guys. Okay. This looks like a US visa. Okay. So for those of you who aren't familiar, if you get a US visa, an immigrant visa in your passport, this is what it looks like. But this document has no name. It's not addressed to anyone. There's no serial number, okay, at the bottom. There's no barcode. So thousands of Afghans received this. Basically, everyone who had applied for SIV, these special immigrant visas for the Afghan translators and other people, they received this email. And what do you think happened when these people received an email like this, a document like this, that has no name? Of course, they printed out 100 copies. Even the Taliban can't control, 2,000 or 3,000 people at the Camp Sullivan Gate when you have tens of thousands of Afghans who now have this kind of ridiculous, bogus document that the State Department created. I mean, I don't know how else to explain something like this, an idea like this, except for brainworms. I mean, it's absurd.
David,
what were they thinking?
As a
Hey guys, you see, so the U.S. Embassy was sending people these bogus documents, okay? thousands of people received these documents. Thousands, okay? They were just sending out emails to everyone to go to the Kabul airport with these papers. And these people all rushed to the airport. Those are not my words. Those are words of David Fox, an American who is in Kabul and who also received this letter. So now you have an American confirming what we have been hearing throughout the last week from people in Kabul. Now I can tell you, I've heard from Ahmed and Mahmoud and this and that and that. This is the story we have been receiving the whole week.
I've been approached by my own relative saying, ahmed-waleed, we trust you. Is it true that they're giving sort of visas for all of these Western countries? To which I've responded, no. So this is something, if you're an Afghan or if you have relatives or friends in Kabul or the surrounding areas, it's something you've been sort of something you've encountered for days now.
Okay, guys, now I will show you a video clip that I shared on Twitter of an Afghan woman who was at Kabul airport, and she recorded this video and to let people know that she is one of those people who received that email and was asked to go to Kabul airport, and she's speaking in English so you can understand what she's saying. I'm going to play the video for you guys.
There's a tons of people are waiting outside the civilian camp. They just ask everyone and they send an email to everyone and they ask everyone to come here because it's a flight today. But since 2 p.m. everyone is waiting outside. It's almost like 10:43 p.m. and there's a child and women and boys and girls. Everyone is waiting outside, but they are even not opening the door and not telling someone that what is happening inside of the camp.
In the chat, AYK says that NDS Unit 01 are also at Kabul airport and providing security inside the airport, and they have also been firing warning shots. And he also says that the Taliban were also firing warning shots. Correct, that those both of those stories we also heard from people, that both Taliban and the Afghan NDS, the security agency of the previous regime, they are still inside Kabul airport and they're also firing warning shots. Now you heard from an American and an Afghan both confirming that they received these bogus documents per mail, and they were all told, thousands and thousands of them, to come to Kabul airport. Now you heard from ahmed-waleed. He also confirmed that he heard stories from his relatives who were asking, is it true that if we just go to the airport, they will board us into airplanes and we will go to Canada, America, or whatever, and then we will be processed there and we will receive visas? That's what is being spread around all around the country. Now, what I said in the previous live stream last night, I explained something. I said to you guys, please do this social experiment with 10, 12 friends of yours. Get 10 people in a line. 10 people in a line, okay? Tell them a joke. The guy who is on the one end of the line, so the number one, you tell the joke in their ear. You whisper in their ear and tell them to whisper in the ear of the other person, and then so on to do number 10. And then when they all have whispered the story in the ear of everyone, go to number 10 and listen what that person tells you. How the joke transfers into entirely something else, entirely a different story, if it goes from word of mouth from one to another and to another. The end result is a totally different story. Now, I'm going to show you another video to let you know that when these stories spread, when people receive these bogus visas, and when they started talking about it, what kind of effect did it have on people in Afghanistan?
So while Sangar goes and gets the video, as you guys can tell, we've obviously done our research. Sangar has spent time sort of contextualizing everything. There are more than 240 people in the chat right now and only 74 likes. Guys, what the hell is that? Like, come on, man.
Like the video, guys.
Just like it so other people can see it as well.
Okay, so now we have a woman.
There we go. We got just about 10 extra likes. Thank you guys.
So
feels like I have to remind you guys anyways, but don't worry because I'm not going to stop reminding you, and neither will I get bored of telling you guys to do that. So yes, Sangar, if you could play this video.
Okay, so this video is of an Afghan reporter. He has a very popular YouTube channel with many Kabul lovers. Kabul lovers. This guy is doing excellent job, just like Humayun Afghan, the guy we discussed in the previous episode. Guys, if you care about Afghan journalists, independent guys, if you care about people like us, but also our counterparts in Afghanistan, go subscribe to their channel, Kabul lovers. Subscribe to his channel, support this man, support all people like him. So here he is at Kabul airport, where all these people are trying to enter the airport, and he's interviewing an Afghan woman. Her name is Majabin. I will play the audio and then I will translate at the end, okay?
جبین هستم. من 5 تا طفل دارم. شوهرم هم میبستم من شوهرم. من همیشه در خانه کرایی زندگی میکنم. فعلا حال خو ماشای میبیم قطع شده. ما خو کدام ماش کدام درآمد دیگه نداشتیم. حال خو من مجبور هستم از اینجا برم. حال هیچ کدام زمینی هم برام مساعد نیست. در کدام چی هم کاری نکردیم که من چیز داشته باشم مجای برم. من از دولت میخواستم است که مرا کوشش کنه که از همیشه که 5 تا طفلم در مملکت روان کنه که غمم خورده شه. من که 5 تا طفل اینجا چی کنم لالا؟ سند دارین خارج؟ خو ندارم که اینجا آمدیم. 2 تا مایی بستیم. او مایی بس ما مایی بستم. من سند از کجا کنم؟
خب خارج وقتی سند نباشه همین شما خودتان فکر کنید شما چه قسم ببرن؟ وقتی شما امر امریکایی کار نکردید، وقتی که شما جانتان در خطر نیست، جان شما در خطر است؟
حال چطور نیست؟ خب در خطر به می خاطر است که 5 تا طفل اومدم اینجا ماندیم. من چی بخورم؟ چی کنم؟ کار غریبی چیزی نیست. ماش چیزی هم نداشتم. چطور کنم؟
خب خیر باشه.
جبین هستم. من 5 تا طفل.
Okay, guys. So what Majabin is saying is that I'm a mother of 5 children. I'm disabled. My husband is also disabled. And we don't receive any benefits from the government because everything is shut down. Everything is closed down. And we hope that we can be taken away from Afghanistan to another country where people can take care of us. And she explains her situation. She says she didn't work, she and her husband, neither of them has worked with foreigners, with Americans or anything, and they don't have any documents, nothing. They only can prove that they are both disabled. So the reporter says, but sister, listen, have you worked with the Americans? Do you have any documents? She says no. And he says, are you personally being threatened? Is your life in danger? Because that's what is in the requirements for those visas. And she says no, but then her husband says, yeah, we are disabled, we cannot work, and we don't have any income. So obviously our life and the life of our children is under threat, which is exactly the essence of this problem. These people are desperate. They have no other options. They have heard that they can be taken away to Western countries, and they don't have any documents. And these people are examples of thousands and thousands of other people who have also joined all these masses going to the Kabul airport. So we discussed the people who have received those bogus visas per email, American citizens and Afghans who worked with them. They are already at Kabul airport trying to get away. And these people, they have heard the rumors, they have heard the stories, and they're also rushing towards Kabul airport. So this is the kind of mass that is surrounding the airport and trying to escape. Now we will go to the next video. Okay, no, we're not going to the next video. I wanted to summarize for you guys what we have discussed so far. So, going back, the Americans in February, when Joe Biden became president, they announced that they are going to review the US Taliban peace deal that was signed a year before under Trump administration. They created this impression that they may not be leaving Afghanistan. We discussed that elaborately in our podcast about the Afghanistan study group. It's on YouTube. It's on all streaming services. Go watch, listen to that podcast. You will get the context of what went around, what was going on back then in February, March 2021. So there was uncertainty. They were not 100% sure. We were not 100% sure if they were going to leave. But then eventually, Joe Biden decided that they are going to leave. So if they are going to leave, first of all, they delayed the departure of their foreign, the fighters, the foreign troops. The story of evacuating vulnerable people and people who worked with the Americans, that wasn't even really on the agenda. But if you, as a government in any place, in any part of the world, if you're going to process thousands of people, 20, 30, 40,000 Afghans, so that they can go and escape the country, you need 2-3 years. I've worked with refugees for more than 10 years. I know how difficult it is to apply for visas and try to escape the country. They didn't bother with organizing all of this. They didn't bother with setting up a special unit within the U.S. Department and the State Department or anywhere else. They didn't do anything. They just waited out until the last moment, and they announced, "Oh, we're going to get more people into United States, people who worked with us." Just months. Not even several months, just a few weeks before they eventually decided to leave the country. This decision could have been taken long before, but they didn't do that. That's the backstory of it. Now we discussed how everything unfolded until the fall of the regime. We are going to move now to the next phase, and we're going to discuss a few comments. Dawn Hunter tweeted something. I'm going to read the tweet. Just 1 second. Where is it? Here you go. So Dawn is saying the media keeps misrepresenting the difference between Taliban preventing foreigners from reaching the airport versus Afghan-born people holding foreign passports. The poor messaging annoys me. Exactly. So there is a huge problem in communication. There's a huge problem in the way things are phrased in the media, the way things are explained, and how this creates mass confusion. We are now at a stage where we have how many people have died so far in Kabul, Ahmed?
In the airport, I think it's about, don't take me as an authority on this, but I'd say about 20, I think. But like, I don't want to downplay the chaos that's going on, but that.
So people died from the stampede. People were actually shot.
People were shot, yeah.
Yeah, people were shot. Children starved and from hunger and thirst. Most horrific things happened. And all of this, you know the backstory. We've just explained how it all unfolded until this moment, okay? Now, let me go to, when we talk about messaging, let me go to the next part of this tragic comedy. Here is Barbara Starr of CNN posting a picture of an American soldier holding an Afghan baby with a bottle of water. No text, no context, nothing. Just the picture. This is the CNN. Okay? Now, if you see this image, what does it mean? Guys in the chat.
It's heartwarming. It's lovely. It shows how caring the man in the uniform is, and by extension, how caring the uniform that he represents is as an institution. It shows how committed the man in this uniform is to saving this poor, really cute young girl. Would you agree with that, Sangar?
Yes. Guys in the chat, comments. Okay, I'm going to show another picture. Here is Ena Rufini, who is tweeting a picture of a Norwegian soldier holding a little baby, okay, inside a military cargo airplane.
Don't worry, kid. You're okay now.
Yes, we, the white saviors, we're going to save you.
Don't worry. Those bearded guys, you won't see them again.
Here is a Finnish soldier holding another cute baby.
It's like they only picked out the cute babies amongst them.
Yeah, all Afghan babies are cute. Okay, so you see that the mess behind it. Okay, just see the image they have selected. You see in the background, you see the airport, you see the tail of an airplane, you see all this rubbish on the floor, and you see this tall soldier in uniform with a Finnish cross.
With his comforting great, his comforting embrace, and the small baby just latching onto him helplessly amongst the carnage of the background.
Okay, now guys, you know the backstory now, how this drama unfolded, all the terrible decisions that were taken by the Americans prior to the evacuation. You know how they bungled the entire process of leaving Afghanistan. You have all heard that, and we explained what happened before that. Now you see these images. Now, like the Barbara Starr tweet, okay? Where's the Barbara Starr? Here we go. 4,262 retweets. Quote tweets, 1,149, and is going up. 35,000 likes. This image has reached millions of people. This is CNN, okay? They are, the Western media are trying to create an image, a portrayal of this drama as we're the good guys. We are saving these poor savages. These people, they need us. But
they needed us all along.
Yes. Now, you see hot men with babies. Hashtag. Yeah, but this is how it works, guys. This is what's happening. Okay? Now, we have covered the entire story so far. We've given you the facts. We've explained how they are now spreading this image as they are the saviors in Kabul. It's a terrible drama. It's heartbreaking. But we are there to save these people.
Amidst all of the carnage, there is still a specter of hope for humanity, and that is the heavily uniformed officer holding with the cute baby. All Afghan babies are cute, yes, latching onto him for dear life. So Sangar.
Yes.
So we've established essentially the story of how this carnage unfolded before our eyes, starting from that day when you and I were live on YouTube, where the president fled, his entire cabinet fled, the US sent through 5,000 soldiers, panic has ensued. You've got this sort of congregation almost of people around Kabul airport. So you've essentially established how all of that happened, right? Now, in your assessment, right, given if we're being honest here, we could say that the media's coverage of this has been not entirely accurate. So, for example, it was saying that a lot of the things we've heard is the Taliban are stopping people from entering the airport, right? And that is, strictly speaking, true. But the fact of the matter is that the Taliban are, funnily enough, patrolling and securing the airport on behalf of the United States. The United States requested that of them. And for those of us that saw, the head of the Taliban sort of cultural commission, Amir Khan Muttaqi, said, the rest of Afghanistan that is in Taliban control is sort of in safe hands. The one place in which the Americans remain is the airport, and look at the state of it, right? Basically taking a shot at the Americans. But now here's the question, right? We've seen And I guess this is to an extent why you and I started this platform, why you and I sit here every night on top of our jobs to sort of provide a counter narrative, right? You and I, as well as a lot of the people that are watching and in the live chat, are very well aware as to the extent to which the media manufactures consent and how the media plays not just a leading role, but perhaps the central role in shaping people's perspectives with regard to these colonial-esque perceptions and attitudes towards our countries, which our people end up being victims of. How do you see, right, how do you interpret the coverage of the past days, as well as this concerted propaganda campaign of armed soldiers holding children? How do you interpret this?
You're asking
Especially given, yeah, I mean, you explained it for us. You've studied journalism much more than myself. What's your take? How do you interpret this?
In journalism, one of the most powerful tools is framing. Okay? Framing basically means that there is a lot going on in the world, yeah? But as a journalist, you pick a frame. You take a picture that depicts a particular situation, and that within that frame, you tell a story. Okay? So that's what journalists do. That's what the media does. So when they frame a particular aspect of the whole drama going on in Kabul airport, they're being very selective. The fact that these soldiers are saving those children is it is a fact. It's happening. It's not a fabrication. But does this tell the entire truth? Does this give you a whole picture of what's going on there? It doesn't. And why do they emphasize this so much? Because they don't want to see you the other side of it. The stuff that we discussed in the beginning of the show, in the first 45 minutes. So this is what is happening. The media is applying framing in order to tell their audience, millions of Americans, people in Western countries, look, we've been in that country for 20 years. We try to civilize these people, bring them Western values through the barrel of a gun. They refused, these savages, but some of them, we're going to save them because we are so good. We are so noble. That's the image that they're trying to portray, and that's the message they're trying to convey. And for that reason, I consider this as an evil act. I think this is evil because let me tell you something, okay? I'm almost 40 years old. I came to this country when I was 12. Most of my life, I wasn't working as an academic. Most of my life in this country, I worked with working class Dutch people. People who live paycheck to paycheck. I lived with them paycheck to paycheck. I have done all sorts of manual labor with the Dutch working class, okay? I identify with them because I've been with them. I've done most difficult jobs, 18-hour shifts, in warehouses, in restaurants, everything. Very difficult jobs. These people, they work entire year and they have holidays 2 weeks a year so that they can rest. The rest of the year they work day in, day out. And their tax money is then used to wage wars in Afghanistan against poor Afghan peoples who in many ways are very similar to them. And when you see that the media is telling them a story, portraying a picture of what's going on in Afghanistan, this is very irresponsible. This is not ethical. If we believe in freedom of speech and freedom of media, freedom of information, it means that journalists have a very big responsibility. They have to care about people in this country and there as well. They have a responsibility to give them a full picture of what's going on. But they don't. and people are deceived. And when I have met very racist and anti-immigrant Dutch people, and the thing with the Dutch is very funny is that they when they know you're a foreigner, okay, when I speak Dutch, usually they don't hear it from my accent, but they see that I'm a foreigner. I'm not a native here. So they keep a distance, but when they see that you work hard and that you're a decent person, they sort of open up and they say, you're a good guy. You're not like the rest of them. But then when they open up, I think, okay, all right, settle down. But then they start, saying yeah, why are we helping those countries? I have to live paycheck to paycheck. And I said, I know, me too. And they say, why are these people taking advantage of this and that? And I say, I know, I agree. I am with you 100%. And these people, I don't blame them to be very skeptical and very distrustful towards the media and authorities, because the media is a powerful institution. It's the fourth estate. They're very powerful. They have a responsibility. But how are they dealing with that responsibility? What are they doing? Like this drama in Kabul airport, we have a country of more than 30 million people in Afghanistan. Suddenly, the whole country is unimportant. Everything is about Kabul airport. And how? Are they telling the whole story? Are they explaining what they have actually done? No.
Would you say that there's almost like a colonial undertone in the sense that the attitude is very paternalistic, almost like sort of infantilizes, let's say, the locals, the natives, if we can say that, right? By basically saying like, look, these guys, they fought against us so hard, but they don't really know what they're doing, right? They don't know that the whole time, sort of, we were there to help them. And now that we're withdrawing, you've got stampedes at the airport. Would you say that there's sort of a colonial level of sort of paternalism there as well?
It is definitely, because they have this sense of cultural, racial superiority, and it stems back from centuries of cultivation of these sentiments and ideas. And that's how it is still preserved in the media, in the political sphere, in everything. We have a super chat from Ahnaf Habib again. You're killing us with all these super chats. Thank you very much. 10 Canadian dollars, Ahnaf says, this is fifth generation warfare. Media play a role via crowd controlling people. Two Chinese colonels discussed this in their book Unrestricted Warfare, where they go over these strategies post-1990s. Excellent. Guys, I've been receiving a lot of questions from people about books. People are asking which books should we read about Afghanistan. So we are going to publish a reading list. Ahmed-waleed Kakar and I will compile a list of books that we recommend you to read. Those books are all in English and they're all available on all major outlets. This article with all the books, the reading list, will be published soon. So if you want to like really get into it and understand Afghanistan properly, those are the books that we recommend. And if you follow us on social media, we will announce when the list is published. We have another super chat from Abdul Ghani Farah. $4.99. Thank you very much, Abdul Ghani. I heard that France has started arresting some of the people they have evacuated from Kabul. What do you know about this? Thank you, guys. Love from Somalia. Somali Wayne. The thing is that we have heard these stories about France, but some other places as well. You see, while there are a lot of people in Afghanistan who are eligible for these special visas, at the same time, some of those people have been falsely accused of being terrorists because maybe they have criticized the government, or may have been on TV or social media saying something critical.
There's another point to make as well here, right? And it's related to what you're saying. A lot of these people who feel like they're under threat, they're not obviously unjustified in feeling under threat, but a lot of these people are people from the 01 unit, the 02 unit, from the KPF, from different militias across the country. So if we're talking about crime rates in the West, inevitably we saw a lot of the, this may not be politically correct to say, but a lot of the Afghans that arrived in Europe after 2014 during the migrant crisis, and actually, Sangar, that's something we should mention with regards to contextualizing refugee flows. But a lot of these, a lot of the Afghans that, I mean, I don't want to say a lot of the Afghans, but there were instances in which Afghan migrants were committing loads of crimes, right? And if you spoke to people back in Afghanistan, in Kabul, they would tell you so-and-so was a criminal and he went, so-and-so was a militiaman or a policeman or so on. So the people that the West get, just like in the 80s and the 90s, for example, it was urban Afghans, generally educated Afghans that were fleeing Afghanistan. Right, in the 90s, we saw more Afghans of communist background fleeing Afghanistan, right? All of these different migratory waves, they represent different demographics within Afghans, people of different regional, provincial, ethnic, sort of on a class basis, people of different backgrounds. So with regard to these people that the people in France have been accused of being Taliban, but a lot of these people that will end up in the streets of the US, of the UK, of France, of Germany, will be battle-hardened militiamen or people that served in the security
forces. Not all of them, okay? We just
want
to everyone to be scared and panic.
Of course, no, of course not. No, of course not. But I mean, the point is that if people are going to feel threatened, despite this Taliban amnesty, if people still feel threatened, we have to logically ask ourselves, Sangar, who is going to feel threatened? Well, there are the translators, yes, but we've already said that the translators, their only problem is, the Taliban are not their only problem. A lot of these translators cannot go back to their villages, right? Because they are despised and seen as collaborators and traitorous and treacherous and so on and so forth. A lot of these interpreters, we know this as well, actually use their positions to carry forth family vendetta, okay? A lot of these interpreters were present during enhanced interrogation techniques, right? Where and these enhanced interrogation techniques were a lot of bad things, let's say, happened. I don't want to mention them because I don't want us to be demonetized or for YouTube to create problems for us. But
speaking of that, there are hundreds of you in the chat. Please like the video.
Thank you. But yeah, so if you want to know about these enhanced interrogation techniques and what happened in the black prisons of Kandahar as well as in Bagram, you're free to go on the internet. All of the information will be there. So these interpreters, because of the variety of roles they played, they're also seen as collaborators, etc. So it's not just the Taliban that they feel threatened by. In addition to these interpreters, you've got the militiamen that I just mentioned, people who have been accused of human rights violations, war crimes, atrocities, so on and so forth. So but here's another point that I mentioned, and whilst talking about it, it came to mind. Sangar, this panicked sort of migration that we're seeing, or attempted migration, isn't actually anything new. We've actually got the now infamous clip of President Ashraf Ghani. I believe the BBC saray khabari kawale.
Yes. Do you have the clip?
I do not.
Okay.
But essentially, we had the clip of President Ashraf Ghani. Now, when did President Ashraf Ghani? I'm still calling him President. My God, I need to get out of this. But we had the clip of Ashraf Ghani when he'd first become president, saying that this was the height of the migration crisis, by the way. If you guys remember 2014-15, Syrians, Iraqis, Afghans, these people were all fleeing and they were sort of crossing on boats from Turkey, going onto Greek islands like Lesbos, etc., and so on and so forth. A lot of these migrants were Afghans. And when President...
Yes, go ahead.
When Ashraf Ghani was asked about these migrants, he said that countries do not thrive by their best, their youngest, and their brightest fleeing. And if people flee, they break the social contract, and therefore I have no sympathy. Okay, so the point that I make here is the clip.
Well, they seem to think so,
No, please
and
do
they're
not.
making that
Please
very
do not.
dangerous journey.
The journey is made voluntarily. They're paying $10,000, $30,000. They are impoverishing their families in order to make that journey, because that journey was based on false assumptions. My responsibility as the elected people of this country is to make sure to defend and to ensure the conditions for even-handed opportunity for people who make a commitment to stay. Those are Afghans, but they've made a choice to leave. When they leave, they break the social contract. This needs to be understood. This is an existential choice. Countries do not survive by their best attempting to flee. So I have no sympathy. My goal is to make...
Well, they seem to think so.
No, please
and
do.
So what we just heard there was President Ashraf Ghani, the then President Ashraf Ghani. Khutaya, I need to get this out of my vocabulary. But the then President Ashraf Ghani saying that he has no sympathy for these migrants. Now, this isn't me trying to demean This isn't me trying to demean Ashraf Ghani, right? But the point that I'm making here is that migratory waves of Afghans is nothing new, right? So here's the question. When Afghans are fleeing from a Ghani-administered Afghanistan, when Afghans are fleeing from an Afghanistan in which Ghani's regime is predominant, is the authority, right, by and large, why were we not hearing headlines of, look at how terrified these Afghans are of Ghani, they're willing to drown in the Mediterranean Sea, or more strictly speaking, the Aegean Sea, in order to escape Ghani? We didn't hear those headlines, did we?
What we also didn't hear is that European countries, the EU, made a deal with Ghani, and they said, we will support your corrupt regime, we will pay you if you accept us deporting Afghan refugees back to Afghanistan. I have been an interpreter for Afghans who have gone through hell. They have been abused in Afghanistan, on their way to Europe, in Iran. They have been, most horrific things happened to them in Iran. Then in Turkey, they were exploited by criminal gangs. Then when they were in Greece, most terrible things that I can't even mention on the live stream happened to young boys, young girls. I translated for all those people, most horrific stories, and most of them eventually were refused asylum in the Netherlands, and they were forced back to Afghanistan. And this was part of a deal of European countries with the corrupt regime in Kabul. But you didn't hear about that in the media. They didn't talk about that.
Well, you know, but in any case, Dawn Hunter is saying, I saw the message saying something about, I love how the historian Waleed puts things into context. Thank you for not being politically correct. Thank you as well, Dawn, for, you know, tuning into our live streams and listening. And you also asked, do you have an estimate of prior Afghan refugee numbers? When did that happen? So I believe from about 2014 to 2016, there were about 100,000 or so, Sangha?
300,000.
300, okay. 300,000. So which obviously dwarfs the 15,000 or so people now crowding around Kabul airport. But as my co-host, or the host, Sangat Paikar, just said, you didn't hear about that, did you? No, you didn't. But in any case...
one more issue. We hear this, the best and the brightest of the country are leaving. Okay? The best and the brightest. That was going on in the last 10 years. All these people that were coming to Europe, they weren't all exactly illiterate people from the villages. They were people...
Because illiterate people from the villages generally don't have the money to make that kind of journey. Say about Ashraf Ghani what you will, but he got that bit right. That journey cost about $10,000 from Afghanistan. You would have to rely on smugglers. A lot of the people actually borrowed the money, and their families got into insane trouble with these smugglers back home. But the point is that the exodus, the brain drain, has been going on for ages. But now this is going to be the quote of this live stream. Sangar Paikar at around 23:34 British summertime said, "You didn't hear about that, did you? Right? You didn't hear about the brain drain under Ghani's regime, did you?" So we've got hundreds of thousands of Afghans fleeing whilst Ashraf Ghani was president, and we didn't hear about it. So now we need to look at, we know that there are, how exactly the whole circumstances around Kabul airport came into fruition, but we also know that migratory waves of Afghans fleeing Afghanistan is not something that's contingent on who is ruling Kabul. It happened under Ashraf Ghani, it happened under the Taliban, right? In fact, it probably happened at a higher rate under Ashraf Ghani than under the Taliban, if we're being honest here. But
because people could afford it.
Because people could afford it, right?
People had the money.
So
just
now
one more thing. The reason why we were able to flee Afghanistan in the 90s, okay, is because both of my parents worked for the communist government in Afghanistan. We had the means to escape the country. Other people were less fortunate. They couldn't escape. And whenever I talk about refugees, whenever I talk about these matters, I'm not just saying things because I am being insensitive. This is the truth. The elite, the people who have benefited, those are the kind of people who can afford to flee. Now, should we be the center of attention? So should everybody talk about us, or the over 30 million people who can't escape the suffering in Afghanistan? Those are the people that should be dominating the headlines.
So yeah, this, once again, just to wrap the point up, migratory waves of Afghans leaving Afghanistan is not something that's contingent on who rules Kabul, clearly, because it happened under the regime of Ghani. So but now here's another thing as well. What you have in and around Kabul airport is actually what could be considered an opportunity. Now let's think of it this way, right? To get to Europe before, and when these Afghan migrants wanted to get to Europe, it wasn't, generally speaking, Slovenia that they were going to, or Poland, or Estonia, or Latvia, right? And that's obviously because those countries are less economically developed, but also because there are significant Afghan communities in Germany, in the Netherlands, in Sweden, Norway, the UK, right, Sangar?
Yes.
So the Afghans trying to flee would obviously not just be attracted to the prospect of a higher life and a stronger economy and partaking in that economy, but also they probably have relatives within those countries in which there are strong and numerous Afghan communities, right? But now let's talk about the journey from Afghanistan. You're paying a smuggler who's a criminal who will probably exploit you in whichever way that he can. You go through Iran, and I've heard stories about what happens to migrants that go through Iran, right? You go through Turkey, you cross the Aegean Sea on a dinghy boat, get to Greece, and then a lot of these people, they just basically walked it through the Balkans, including Syria, Hungary, etc., so on and so forth, right? But now there's an opportunity whereby if you stand, KJ Khan is here. KJ Khan is our moderator from last time, and I think the general reviews of their moderation were very positive. But now, so what you have now, coming back to the point, rather than going through all of these countries in trucks, smuggled, you now have an opportunity to queue outside Kabul airport. And don't get me wrong, it's not a 5-star hotel. The situation there is terrible. But what a lot of these people are thinking is, if we stand outside this airport long enough, right, maybe a day, maybe 2 days, it's dirty, it's disgusting, but we'll manage to actually just get on the plane for free, and we'll be taken to the US or to Canada or to Britain or to France or to Germany, right? So we can't really underestimate the allure that kind of that the prospect of a better economic life has for these people. And bear in mind, Afghanistan is one of the poorest countries in the world. Trillions of dollars have been spent. If the Taliban were terrorists, let's assume they were terrorists. I know a lot of people in the mentions are going to be like, in the live chat are going to be like, no, they're not. They're freedom fighters. But let's just assume, for sake of argument, they are terrorists. Okay, the war against terror failed because the Taliban once again took over Kabul. If it was about nation building, it failed because the nation collapsed in 11 days against the Talib onslaught. If it was about building a viable economy, it failed because now we've got a humanitarian crisis and banks were closed because the US stopped shipping in bundles of cash to keep the system afloat. It failed in all counts. Afghanistan is a politically primitive society, and I say primitive in the sense that its political institutions are non-existent. We've once again reverted back to a very precarious sort of modus operandi. One of the poorest countries in the world, you're telling me that people, even if they are not threatened by the Taliban, will not think that it's worth standing outside the airport, perhaps even risking death, to try getting to a Western country wherein they could live better lives? Like, are we underestimating the fact that people from poor but peaceful countries oftentimes try to illegally migrate to the West? And that's what I think I'll wrap it up on.
Guys, now we have to go back to today's most important story, and that is this. We're going now to today's story. So we have here the what did I do with that video? So the spokesman of the Taliban, their
Zabiullah
Mujahid, he was basically saying that they will not allow any more refugees to leave through Kabul airport, and it is translated, so you can listen to what the translator says. Here we go. Just 1 second.
There's a lot of discussion in the West about the 31st of
Sikandar
August
from
deadline.
BBC.
Have you received any request from the Americans to extend the evacuation scheme beyond that date? And are there any circumstances under which you would agree to extending that date?
I don't think we will extend the deadline. 31st, it is their plan, is the American plan. This was already not according to the agreement. They have opportunity. They have all the resources. They can take all the people that belong to them. We are not going to allow Afghans leave, and we will not extend the deadline. We will be deciding about this there and then.
Okay, guys, so now we have a situation where, first of all, the Americans bungled the whole process of withdrawal. Why? Because once Trump signed the agreement, Joe Biden came and said, you know what? I'm going to review this. I'm not sure if this is such a good idea. Okay? So he didn't carry on. You're muted, Ahmed. Say something.
And then he unilaterally extended the deadline.
He unilaterally extended the deadline. That situation created this urgency because the delay created urgency. They did not start the process of issuing visas and helping these people to escape the country on time. As I explained in the beginning of the stream, if you have 30, 40, maybe 50,000 Afghans that you want to extract from Afghanistan, that's not something that you can do in a few days, and you cannot send them to Kabul airport at the gates so that they can be processed in a few days. It requires years of preparation. They didn't do that. Okay? They didn't do that. Anyhow, the regime collapsed. In the last moment, they sent 5,000 troops to withdraw their own US embassy staff. In all this process, the concern of all these thousands of Afghans that they wanted to provide visas, it wasn't on the agenda. It didn't have any priority. Now, they have basically surrendered the whole country to the Taliban, and Kabul airport is surrounded by the Taliban. And now the Taliban say, you know what? After August 21, it's end of story.
August 31.
31, yes.
But now here's the thing. Now, from the Taliban's perspective, we need to ask, why are they opposed to Afghans leaving? Well, the thing is that they've actually been opposed to it for quite a while. So they initially announced an amnesty for everyone. That included interpreters. And they were actually, I don't know if you guys saw the report, Sangat, I don't know if you saw the report either, but they actually went to the Americans and said, hey, why are you guys giving asylum to these interpreters? You're interfering in our internal affairs. Now, from their perspective, why is that? They've given an amnesty, but yet they don't want the interpreters to leave. Well, from their perspective, they don't want a brain drain, right? They don't want English literate Afghans to flee the country and them to be left in a situation where they're sort of in the 90s again, where there are no sort of professionals, bureaucrats, people working in the civil service and so on and so forth. So they essentially today, Hikmat J is asking, can you turn on live captioning? Can we turn on live captioning, Sangat?
When we play a video?
Yeah.
Okay, we will try to do that from now on.
Sure. But in any case, they don't want a brain drain. They sort of want everyone to stay behind and so on and so forth. Now, I believe there was something I saw on Sky News today saying that 21,000 Afghans were basically evacuated from Afghanistan in the last 24 hours, right? Now, that's a lot. Now, in the grand scheme of things, the amount of Afghans leaving Afghanistan is not much, right? If we bear in mind that there are 35 million people, right, Senga? But we're talking about people that are literate in the English language, so on and so forth. So from the Taliban's perspective, it's very simple. Someone messaged me today. They were like, Ahmad, why have they appointed some Maulawi or Mullah guy to be the finance minister? And I was like, well, they actually told everyone to please stay and do your jobs because they don't really have the expertise or the qualified professionals to run those ministries. And on that note, I want to say that Rangina Hamidi, who was the Minister of Education in the previous regime, she's obviously probably not watching this, but compared to all of the other people in the Ghani regime cabinet, this was the one minister that I can see, and it's funny because she's a woman, and you would expect her to sort of feel the most scared.
Who spent most of her life in America?
Who spent most of her life in America without any sort of grassroots support or much recognition. She actually stayed behind and is currently working with the Taliban to sort of come up with a new curriculum. Now, everyone else left with their tails between their legs. So Rangina Hamidi, honestly speaking, even if, let's say, her Pashto skills are not to the extent that we would want them to be, massive level of respect to see that. Now, unfortunately, we didn't see that level of bravery. Yes,
I wanted to say something. Okay, so this image of Rangina Hamidi sitting there across the table and discussing curriculum with the Taliban, okay, I have my share of criticism of Rangina Hamidi, and I'm not going to retract that, okay? While I was very critical of her and the fact that she was appointed, whatever. Here is something that really, really struck me when I saw that image. You see, in Western media for the last 25 years, they portrayed Afghan women as weak and vulnerable and in need of protection. Okay? I am raised by an Afghan woman. Yeah? I know Afghan women, what kind of people they are. They're not victims. They're not scared. Okay? Everyone says, oh, Afghans are very brave people. Very brave people. That's because we're raised by brave women. And this woman like Rangina Hamidi is just an example of many women who are like this. Afghanistan is a country of people, you know, women are half of the society. They gave birth to the other half of the society and they raise the other half of the society. You know, there is a famous statement of Ibn al-Qayyim, the scholar from 7 centuries ago, and he has famously said that women are half of the society and they gave birth to the other half of the society and they raised the other half of society. So the whole ummah, the Muslim nation, the women are the whole of ummah. And that's the case. You see these women who stay behind and they say, you know what, even though I have spent all my life with them.
At a time in which all of the macho men left.
Exactly. Minister of Defense escaped. The president, who is the chief commander-in-chief, he escaped. All these commando leaders and whatnot, all of them ran away with their tails between their legs. But these women stayed behind.
Well, but yeah, in any case, so what we've got now is that the Taliban are appointing what seems to be the mullahs or people that they call mullahs or whatever to these different ministries, and they may or may not be qualified. And the reason that they're doing so is because the previous government's experts left. So that's the situation we're left in. So it makes perfect sense that Zabiullah Mujahid is saying that henceforth no Afghans would be allowed to leave. But now Sangar, my prime minister, has actually made a statement about that. Why don't we play that?
Which one?
My prime minister.
Your prime minister.
My prime minister.
Okay. I was just reading what the guys were saying in the chat. Okay, so here's
there's a debate. There's a debate about the ISI creating Taliban.
I thought that debate was already over. It was confirmed.
That debate is never over.
What we've done today at the G7 is we've got together the leading Western powers and agreed not just a joint approach to dealing with the evacuation, but also a roadmap for the way in which we're going to engage with the Taliban, as it probably will be a Taliban government in Kabul. And the number one condition we're setting as G7 is that they've got to guarantee right the way through August the 31st and beyond safe passage for those who want to come out. Now, some of them will say that they don't accept that, and some of them, I hope, will see the sense of that. What we're saying is Afghanistan can't lurch back into becoming a breeding ground of terror. Afghanistan can't become a narco state. Girls have got to be educated up to the age of 18, and so on. And those are important things that we value as G7. Those are things that unite us in the West. Those are things, by the way, for which we fought for years in Afghanistan, and for which people in this country gave their lives.
Okay, so generally, there is an element of positivity towards. Wait, but then there was a part of this speech where he said that the G7 has leverage over the Taliban, political, economic, and diplomatic. So
they didn't upload that part.
Of course. Naturally. But in any case, this is positive because he's basically saying that we're willing to sort of work with the Taliban. And obviously I'm going to get the odd comment of, how could you want the UK to work with terrorists. Well, you know, the terrorists won and the whole country is in their hands. And if they get screwed, the whole country gets screwed. Right. But in any case, this is positive because it's signaling the willingness of Downing Street to work with the Taliban. But obviously, there are certain conditions there. It's conditional. But what I'm not understanding is why do you think he is opposed to, let's say, the Taliban saying, look, we've got a brain drain. We need to pull the plug on this brain drain, right? Why would Boris be opposed to that? What's your take on that, Sangar?
Oh, tough question. I think I'm getting a bit sleepy. Look at my eyes. We forgot to talk about Farzana Sheikh.
We will. Okay.
Can you rephrase the question?
What do you make? Why would you say that Boris is insistent that the condition is that after the 31st, people should leave Afghanistan? What's his inherent interest in that?
I mean, I wouldn't know.
You could go down the sinister line and say, yes, Boris wants a brain drain from Afghanistan and he wants to screw the Taliban, but it's a bit of an odd thing for him to insist on, amongst all things, wouldn't you say?
Yes, especially because the UK doesn't like to get more refugees. Like
exactly,
the Conservative Party doesn't want more refugees in UK. So.
Exactly, it's a curious thing. But in any case, guys, I was watching Sky News earlier today, and in Sky News, they spoke to Dr. Farzana Sheikh, who is a senior research fellow at Chatham Institute, and they were talking about extending the deadline of 31st of August. Now, obviously, this was before the G7 summit. Now, after the G7 summit, Biden has come out and said the deadline won't be extended. But listen to this, Sangar, right? Dr. Farzana Sheikh is basically saying that, yes, you could pressure the Taliban to extend the deadline. And the presenter asked, how could we do that? And she said, well, they've got about $9 billion in foreign reserves, mainly held in the US, and you could just not give that to them. Is that not the most scumbag level of politics you've ever seen for a country that's facing a humanitarian crisis?
We've seen that before in Afghanistan in the 1990s when the Taliban were in power. They imposed sanctions on Afghanistan. You couldn't even import an aspirin into Afghanistan. Okay? People were starving. We had a drought back then. There was no food. The country's agriculture was devastated because of the Soviet occupation. They carpet bombed entire rural Afghanistan, so we weren't producing any food of our own. We couldn't produce any medication. There was no fuel, nothing. And they posed sanctions on Afghanistan because Taliban are terrorists, and because they wanted to punish terrorists, they punished the poor people of Afghanistan who were basically being held hostage. And now they want to do that again.
And then they came in, invaded, and told us that they built up our economy, but the economy's basically collapsed a week after they've left. Don't you love the West, man? But in any case, I think there was even an article that I shared on my Twitter where Trudeau was basically saying that we support potential sanctions against the Taliban in Afghanistan.
So compassionate.
So compassionate.
Yes.
So compassionate. A country that's on the verge of a humanitarian crisis. You couldn't win militarily, so now you're going to beat them with starvation. Sounds, you know what? I'm not really surprised, to be honest. But the game is the game. And guys, I think on that note, we should wrap it up.
Yes, we're going to wrap it up. We were planning on doing this for just 1 hour, but so are the days of our lives. Okay, guys, I really appreciate everyone who is in the chat, even though you haven't pressed the like button. Okay, but
we forgive you.
We forgive you. But if you still want to press the like button, please go ahead. I want to thank all of you for listening, being an active participant in this conversation with your questions, with your comments. And I also appreciate that we have received less hate speech in the chat. Maybe because we have imposed some restrictions, but it's
We have
because
KJ Khan back with us.
Yes.
He disappeared for a couple of days.
Yes, guys. The thing is that we are together. We are a community. Every night, even though we're sleep deprived, exhausted, we come here and sit, and we know that there are hundreds and hundreds of people who sit with us, listen, participate, chat in the chat, ask questions. We received so many super chats, new patrons, donations via PayPal. I have received $200 in total in Bitcoin. And if any of you wants to donate Bitcoin, just ask me. I will give you the code. But all the support, all this love and support that we receive, I really appreciate that. I want to thank you all. I hope you guys benefited from this show. I know I'm a little bit ranty sometimes. It's because I feel very deeply about these issues.
And if we didn't feel deeply about these issues, we wouldn't have set up our own platform. Now, guys, a lot of you guys have messaged us. I just got an email from someone, and I hope they're still watching, thanking us for what we do. So now here's the thing. As Sangar mentioned, sleep deprivation. It's real. I don't know if I have the eye bags here, but like we always say, we work full time and then we sort of run a couple of errands. Sangar goes to the gym or boxing, and then we're back here and we sort of recap on the day's news. Sometimes there is no real day's news, so we come back after a couple of days, and sometimes we can't really do it because of other family or professional commitments. Now, here's the thing, guys. If you believe in our cause, like Sangar said, we care about this stuff deeply. We don't care about this deeply just because Afghanistan is an interesting place, but because we're from Afghanistan. I obviously was British born, but Sangar was born in Afghanistan, but I've been to Afghanistan multiple times. I'm in contact with people there. I have family there. I would like nothing more than for the country to prosper and succeed. Now, sadly, the country, just as it was held hostage by foreign occupations and a regime like that of Ghani's, it's also been held hostage to a dominant narrative in which the aspirations and values of common Afghans are not really represented. The only Afghans that are heard and represented are those with a political/ideological agenda or who are tied to political organizations. Now, we, as I said, are doing this on a freelance basis. If you want us to do this on a full-time basis to the extent where we can essentially leave our jobs and do this full-time, travel to Afghanistan, travel from Afghanistan, do reports, make a lot more content, make things a lot more interesting for you guys, teach a lot of people. We're not asking you to sponsor us or become our organizational patrons and, you know, set a salary of £35,000 for me and 40,000 euros for Sangar per annum. But if you want to see us do this full time, because this is our passion and this is our real calling, you can help us do that. And how can you help us do that? Firstly, like the video, because that way more people will see us and they can tell more people. As Ustad Eminem once said, tell a friend to tell a friend. Like the video, subscribe to our channel, share our content with your friends. And if you really agree with the cause, you can become patrons on our Patreon. It doesn't have to be sort of a £60 a month or whatever that sort of amount.
We got one like that.
We got one like that, but obviously. But the point is that the more people to whom we're exposed, the more clicks we'll generate, the more revenue we can generate, and eventually, maybe inshallah ta'ala, this could become our full-time job, and we can educate many more people, just as we have spoken to yourselves and answered all of your questions. So that, if you want to see us do that, guys, you guys are just as much part of the journey as we are. Now, in any case, on that note, Sangar, your eye bags are gonna thank me for wrapping this up. Zam wala stadayam, wala der stadayam. In any case, it was really nice covering the day's events, and I hope, inshallah ta'ala, if tomorrow there are events to cover and dissect in our next live stream, if it happens, inshallah, I hope it is good news. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.